All right. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. This is actually one of our most attended webinars today. So we actually have on a very exciting guest today. Davor is the SEO Director over at SmartClick. It's a web and SEO agency. And yeah, we just want to thank everyone for joining in today. And we're so excited to chat to Davor today. We're going to be talking about how to communicate real SEO ROI over to your team and over to clients, frameworks for prioritizing revenue-driven work, and also how to target and attract A players as well, and tackle the whole conversation on hiring and building strong teams. So without further ado, Davor, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you keeping?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. And Davor, to kick things off, you've been with SmartClick now for about just over 2 years now, if I'm correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. And so I think what we could start off with is what attracted you to SmartClick when you first joined, and what sort of challenges were you dealing with when you were brought into SmartClick to sort of transition into the team and tackle the tasks at hand?
Yeah, so what attracted me, I can say, was most about the shared vision that I had with the co-founders of the company. So briefly before coming to SmartClick, I had the opportunity to work with one of the co-founders, Branko, on a project. So I got the opportunity to see what kind of person, what kind of people I'll be working with, to familiarize myself with the vision of the company. So I think that what they wanted out of the role at the time was what aligned perfectly with the stage of my career and what I wanted out of my career at the time as well. So yeah, here I am 2 years after that. So things are going really well.
Awesome. And how was that first sort of 90-day period when you were onboarding yourself? When the team was onboarding you and you were sort of getting to know everyone and aligning sort of your strategies with the business goals?
Yeah. So the first 90 days were more about firstly just establishing myself into the environment. So I learned about the team, learned about their clients, the resources we had at our disposal, and just try to do the best I could to firstly stabilize the ship, because there was at the time there was a situation where a couple of clients had declining traffic. So as soon as I could, I just dove right in and just tweaked some of the strategies to try to get the best out of the situation, and then familiarize myself with how the strengths of the team, the resources that we had. And the first 90 days was, as I said, just about establishing a strategy in the long run and making sure that we are working SEO in a way that is aligned with current trends, but also just to make sure that we are making the gap smaller with other competitors as well.
Perfect.
Davor, what is the sort of the process? So like you said, you went in, some clients are declining in traffic. What is your process to sort of, obviously you dive in, like you said, tweak the strategy, but also sort of at the same time, teach the team on maybe not necessarily where they went wrong, but where they could sort of improve and bring them on board to sort of your way of thinking?
I mean, the process in the way that I do it is just to see from multiple angles where there is a gap, where there is an opportunity. I'm just looking at the long hanging fruits in terms of, for example, if there are pages that have been declining, if there are pages on the second, third page of Google that can be easily brought to page one. I mean, not easily, but there is a workaround that you can see an effect in the next couple of weeks. And then I just want to familiarize myself with the long-term strategy, because for each of our clients, for example, we have retainers for 6 to 9 to 12 months, etc. So there is a long-term strategy, like a roadmap in place. So I just want to see whether that roadmap is still valid and just assess the situation. But I must say that firstly, looking at, for example, there may be some obvious things that have gotten out of the way, and that, for example, there was some keyword cannibalization. That keyword cannibalization was, let's say, preventing two competitive pages that had the potential to bring organic leads competing against each other. We just dissolved the cannibalization, and the next week the results were very different. So I'm looking at for potential like that and what we can do in the meantime. So there are multiple ways to look at it, but my way is that just think short term and long term as well.
Awesome.
So SmartClick sort of self-defines themselves as a web development and SEO agency. And I know that you mentioned you were working with another teammate who manages the web dev side of things. One thing that we've been chatting to a lot of both clients and candidates aside is that, you know, the breaking down of silos has been happening quite prominently this year. How has your relationship with the web dev side of things, how have you been managing that relationship and sort of breaking down silos and improving, I guess, communication? The reason I'm asking this question is just in terms of, like, you know, other team leads that may be struggling to kind of break down those silos in their own teams.
I mean, what we look at it, for example, the dev team is quite a complementary team to what we do. So they work in a separate way. They have, for example, their own dev projects, but when there is a need, they help with SEO. So it's a very competitive edge in our that comes in our advantage, because I've been working also in-house, and I know how detrimental it can be when you don't give approval from the dev team when you want to do something from an SEO perspective. So having that gives us the freedom to be very quick with implementation, catch and implement technical issues very quickly. But in our team, Branko, the co-founder, is leading the dev team currently. So he's in charge, for example, for all dev-related matters. And when we communicate the SEO and dev relationship, it's very easy because they've been working for quite a long time. So they have an understanding how a dev implementation needs to be done so that it has SEO benefits as well. So there are differences in that. So it's a very good thing to have someone like Branko in the team who also is an expert in technical SEO and can translate that into digestible information for the dev team. So things are very smooth and straightforward in that matter.
Awesome. And now, like, I think that you are, you know, building out your teams. You had mentioned to us that something that your teams have been putting in the effort into and over the past while is assessing how to improve your own hiring strategies. And that's something that we really wanted to dig into on this webinar as well, is what has the process been like with you guys hiring, and what has sort of what have you noticed, I think, in the patterns that you're sort of recognizing in terms of attracting A players or helping sort of, attract A players towards your team?
I mean, when it comes to A players and attracting, retaining A players, that is one of the crucial things that I've gotten to experience as an SEO director at SmartClick. Because as you scale, as you get to a point where the company scales with more complex plans, with bigger quantity and managing different kind of things at once, so you get to rely on people that you wish are going to become or are A players at the point. Because when you delegate, you need to be fully trust that what you delegate is going to be done in a way that is going to be effective. So when it comes to the hiring process and attracting A players, we began to see some, for example, patterns in terms of the decision-making process. So when I could, for example, just try to break down some of the traits that, for example, A players have, are decision-making. So when you are at a position where you need to make a choice, what kind of SEO strategy you're going to follow, you need to make a decision at that point, because you have so many resources at your disposal. For example, we have a content team, we have link building, technical SEO, we have strategy as well. So you can approach the strategy for the client in many different ways. And when you're at a point when you need to delegate to the A players, you need to know that their judgment call is going to be right at the time. So I say that SEOs and A players in SEOs need to, for example, be looked at from a perspective of decision-making, how they think about SEO, not what they know about SEO. Because when you look at CVs, you can see a bunch of SEOs with a lot of years of experience that doesn't necessarily translate into quality of work and building that sustainable model of growing strategies that are going to reflect in organic leads for your clients. So I think that decision-making, not being a yes man in terms of, so for example, when I got into the company, I did a lot of documentation, a lot of SOPs, workflows, processes, so that the team could work in a way that it would be easily digestible for them. But as time goes on, those strategies themselves become obsolete. So I need people who are going to challenge that, status quo at the time, and going to bring a new perspective of what they think about SEO as well. Because it's not like the knowledge I have about SEO is, definitive. It's definitely great when you have people on board that are going to challenge that, are going to bring a new perspective on board. So decision making, as I said, and just thinking about the output for the clients and how what we do translate into an action and an impact for the clients themselves. So it's very important to have people who have that awareness that what we do is very important for the clients. As every decision we make today, whether we optimize a single blog post, whether we improve internal linking, work on technical SEO link building, has an action and passively or directly impacts how the output is going to be for the client. So I think decision making is crucial in that matter.
I love that. And Davor, you mentioned towards the start of that you look at people who are A players already and then people that sort of have the potential to become one. How do you spot the people that have that potential? Is there anything like any sort of traits or skill sets that stand out?
Traits and skill sets, I would say people who usually try to connect what they do with how it reflects results, and people who are very curious about what they do. Those are the people that have the tendency to grow into that A-player leadership role, because whatever we do today in SEO, we have to measure the impact of that. So A/B testing, curiosity, experimentation, those are the things that are very important to note. And I would say, for example, when recruiting potential A players, when you try to kind of see those traits on a CV, I would say that another action that needs to be taken, and that's what we're planning to do in our next hiring processes, is just implement like a testing phase where we kind of give them a bunch of options to choose how they tackle a certain strategy. And that will allow us to kind of see how they would approach SEO themselves. So I would say that's a very crucial thing to do.
Awesome. And then as the SEO director, I'm assuming part of the role is obviously like training and development of the staff. How do you help sort of maybe more junior SEOs how their actual day-to-day work translates to, like whether it's like revenue or like leads generated for clients? How can you sort of show them that?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the company culture kind of things that we do. For example, we always have a monthly meeting within the company where we talk about what we have done, how that has translated into ROI for the clients. But when it comes to junior SEOs, I try to give feedback as much as possible. So I just kind of provide instructions for the tasks. The team provides instructions. So I just want to be there in the first couple of months just to see and provide feedback and have frequent one-on-ones just to remind them how what they're doing can be done a little bit differently, so that when adjusted, when tweaked a little bit, has a lot of potential to bring more results for the client. So it's about frequent communication, because that's the most important thing, and allowing that kind of curious mindset to be set early on for junior SEOs, because it's very important that they know that they're allowed to speak openly about what they are not so sure about, what could be done better. And just frequent feedback, in my opinion, is key to everything.
Awesome.
Is there on our other podcast that Josh leads, the Agency Growth Club podcast, he chats to agency owners as well. And one of the things that a lot of the guests mention is that they struggle with delegation, especially like from a top-down level. There's a lot of difficulties in terms of that aspect of things. How do you sort of navigate around managing A players and giving them the freedom to tackle new things or try new things, but also, I guess, balance the micromanagement level of it while also giving them the freedom to try new things?
I mean, that's the thing that you gotta do. You have to step away from micromanagement in terms of long-term progress. But when it comes to delegation, you need to be there from time to time just to check on how what has been going on has impacted the ROI and the results of the clients. But when it comes to delegation, I think that has to be, for example, a set within a company, depending on the structure of the company, whether we have a flat structure, whether we have a set hierarchy, and everything revolving around the structure defines the way that you delegate. But it's very important, for example, for the A players to know that mistakes are okay to happen. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's not like what we do results in 100% success. But it's very important for me to detect that those things have been done correctly through communication. So we have a weekly meetings. We have we work in a way that we create weekly sprints so that we catch up regularly with everyone in the team just to see how things are moving along, whether there are some bottlenecks in the area, and with how they communicate about their problems, about the tasks that they do, how they communicate with the clients as well. And you can see whether someone is proactively working on something at the time or not. So it's very visible, and you can see that through communication, to the reporting, and just how they approach the client communication as well. Because we have weekly or bi-weekly calls with our clients, and many of our team members are included in those calls as well. So what we want to talk about is less task-related stuff, more about where we are at the moment, how we are moving along with SEO and the results of it all. So it's very important, in my opinion, just to have that kind of freedom for the A players to express themselves in those calls. And I'm not trying to be rigid about it. I'm not trying to be like, we have to do it in ABC, but they have the freedom to talk about ideas, to talk clearly with the stakeholders about what could be done differently. Because as I said, our strategies are evolving over time. So we have, for example, clients who have been with us for a year or two, for example, and strategies evolve over time. So A players need to be the one, and they're the ones that are going to lead it, because I'm not going to be able to be at all places at once. So they should know much more about the strategy and what's best for the clients themselves. So it's very important to build that trust over time. And if you, for example, micromanage that, you're not going to get to a point where you can scale naturally and keep the quality as well.
Awesome. And Davor, you mentioned just previously on that about the sort of team structure, whether it's flat or a bit more layers in it. As you sort of scale, and you mentioned about scaling earlier on in the podcast as well, how often do you as the SEO director have to reassess the team structure and sort of navigate what hire is needed next?
To be honest, very often recently, because we have had a sort of clients in the past 6 months, let's say, and we had we need to think constantly about it. So me and Branko, the co-founder, we are always having conversation about what the structure needs to look like, for example, and what should work best. So that is a conversation we have very often. And we are still at a point where we are trying to find the right recipe for long-term scaling, because of course, when you scale, you get to see what works and what doesn't work from the old structure, which habits and documentation and SOPs needs to be like broken down, or how you can allow your SEO strategies to work in the best way possible. So that's the struggle that we have had. And when you deal, for example, with clients that are more demanding, that have more people on board, that are more complex. For example, we had one client where a couple of CMOs changed in a span of 2-3 months. So that made things a little bit different for us and for the people that were leading the project. And then you have to kind of navigate resources to help other people who have more demands, projects that are more demanding. So that's why the structure needs to be assessed. I'm not saying often, but for example, when the time presents itself, it should be done. And we're at the phase right now where we are remodeling that structure ourselves.
Perfect. And when it comes to sort of identifying that right hire, how do you weigh up if it's going to be somebody more junior that you can mold into a certain position, or somebody that you need to be able to hit the ground running and he's like more plug and play?
So for example, for positions, so in the hiring process, we try to ensure that with the knowledge that we have so far, with the ICP clients that we have had, we already more or less know what kind of people we need in certain roles, and what kind of people we could potentially harm their progress if we put them in a role that's not suitable for them. So what we try to do is make sure that we assess that. And as I said, we did some research in terms of how and we can attract and retain A players. So when it comes to putting people in the right roles, we try to see which people have that kind of innate ability to kind of handle the uncertain. Because when we're working as a position, for example, in management position in SEO management, you will be in a more uncertain environment where a priority is going to have to be shifted, and it's going to be up to you to make a judgment call, as I said, and you're going to have to work with prioritizing high impact tasks, and sometimes cutting a task that doesn't work anymore. So That's why we need some people that are going to be able to accept that kind of uncertainty and that the pressure that comes with it. And when it comes to hiring juniors, we are trying to kind of assess the potential. So try to be, for example, open about what the trajectory of the career would look like, for example, for them over here, what the patterns are going to look like, because we need also specialists on board who are going to become perfect at their role. So not everyone can be, for example, converted into SEO management. We also need people who are best at what they do. For example, best at content, best at link building, best at technical SEO, so that you know who you can rely on in different situations.
Awesome. I think that's great.
Awesome. Just one last question on this before I have, I know there's a guest that's commented a question as well, a listener that's commented a question. If I had to flip the side of things, we've chatted about what you would look for in an ideal A player and how you would like to build up teams and spot strengths within your teammates and things. But if we had to flip the question and say in 2025, moving into 2026, what sort of underlying hidden red flags would you ideally watch out for when looking for talent to bring on, or when you're opening up a job search for a new position?
I mean, red flags for me, the red flag is if you treat SEO as a checklist, as a checkbox, because many people do that. And many people, for example, working in the industry just, for example, just want to work with SEO, just like completing tasks, never going the extra mile. So I would say with SEO right now, with everything that's going on with AI as well, the competitiveness in the industry has grown a lot. So you really need to be best of the best if you want to succeed. And people who treat SEO as a checkbox are the ones that I would steer away from, just because we are not, for example, the type of agency right now where we want to produce results for each of our clients that we work with, and we give our best at all. So if we have at any position someone who treats SEO like a checkbox, whether that's a strategist, whether that's an executor of the task, each of them are going to have, for example, consequences from each other. So you can have the best strategy, it's not going to work if it's not executed properly. At the same time, you can be great at executing. If you don't have the right instructions, it's not going to work. So it goes both ways. So that's why it's very important to assess who you're working with and whether they're a fit company-wise, whether they're a fit in terms of the skill set and the mindset as well.
Awesome, I love that. Okay, so in terms of questions from the audience, Boschko asked, how should we adapt our SEO strategy as search engines evolve, i.e. AI overviews, voice search, semantic search?
Yeah, I mean, SEO strategy is, of course, always at all times is being adaptable. So in the past, let's say a couple of years, a lot of things have emerged in terms of AI and how it has impacted SEO. But I would just say, just staying calm at this point, not trying too many things because just they're popular on LinkedIn and just because people say it is. You have to be wary that not everything that's being said online is true at this point. For example, just yesterday, I read a case study about ChatGPT conversions having bigger leverage than Google conversions. And then on the other hand, I read a contradictory case study that said the opposite. So you have to be very careful about how you approach your SEO strategies. And at this point, I think much of traditional SEO still works. I'm not saying not embracing AI, because there are a lot of things that work in terms of AI. For example, Reddit SEO, YouTube SEO, becoming like an omni-channel oriented in terms of how you lay out the SEO strategy. But I would say doing the basics and doing them really well still works. Search intent is becoming increasingly important. So as search behavior shifts right now, it's very important to lay out the content in terms of what the user is looking for. And previously it was, for example, creating as richer content as possible. Right now, we're just getting to the point, providing that accurate answer, being a source of expertise rather than just cluttering information in one single blog post. So I think people should keep a close eye on how things are going to evolve in the upcoming period. But yeah, I would say traditional SEO still does the trick if implemented properly.
Awesome. And I think in keeping in theme with that question, a nice transition that I actually wanted to get to is you guys do SEO in different areas such as the US, the UK, EU, and AU as well. And I wanted to ask, how do you guys localize strategies for multi-country clients without like constantly having to like put in that rework every single time?
I mean, it's very much about reading the SERPs in the local markets. So when we're working, we have a lot of clients where we need to localize our strategy, and it comes down to reading the SERPs. It comes down because for every location, different types of results are being driven. So you need to understand how the locals there behave in terms of the search their search queries. So you need to adapt your strategy for each of that locations specifically. But SERP analysis is one of the main things that we do. And one of the main things actually we focus on improving each of our SEO experts on board, because when you do that, when you understand what Google, for example, or other engines expect out of that search in particular locations, the answer is going to be there on what you need to provide and what you can do better. So it's just about being not copying the competitors, but understanding what is expected out of that search and what kind of intent that keyword has in that specific location, and doing your best just to be an authority there.
Awesome.
Perfect. And Davor, obviously, do you guys specialize in SaaS? Is that right?
Yes.
How obviously that's probably one of the most competitive industries
Yes.
or niches within SEO. How does that add anything when you come to hiring for an SEO? Do they have to have SaaS experience, or sort of within a similar market like cybersecurity or another sort of competitive niche?
Yeah, it's a good to have feature in my opinion. It's not like strictly we have to hire people who have SaaS experience, because I think that if you're good enough SEO, you will reach that level where SaaS is something you just learn along the way. But yeah, it's a good to have. When we, for example, right now we are screening for SEO managers at this point, so we are looking, of course, for people who have SaaS experience, because it's really good when you have experience. You know the hurdles, you know the obstacles along the way, you know what the competitiveness looks like, how you need to adapt your strategy. So yeah, SaaS is very competitive indeed, but of course there are workarounds and there are ways you can achieve success there.
Perfect. And you mentioned you carry out quite a lot of like research into how to hire the right person. What goes on behind the scenes to make sure that SEO manager is the right fit for SmartClick?
To be honest, a lot of things. Firstly, of course, we have a couple of interviews on before we make a decision. We try to be as open-minded as possible. So when we have like those first interviews, we try to learn as more about the person as possible, because we have a lot of boxes that need to be checked on our end as well, in terms of cultural fit, in terms of how they approach SEO, their vision about SEO, especially when we're talking about SEO leadership roles, because those are the roles where you have to have trust in the person you're going to delegate a lot of important tasks to. So you need to make sure that you know that person you work with is the one that you can blindly trust sometimes, because that has to happen. And when it comes to the hiring process, how that reflects the hiring is, as I said, firstly, cultural fit, making sure that they have that right mindset that we have. For example, the environment we're working with is not perfect. So if someone has, for example, strives to work in that kind of perfect environment, maybe we're not going to be a good fit for them, and it goes both ways. So we want to work with people who are going to understand what we require at this point, and understand that how we approach SEO is a little bit differently, and it's not like template based. We always try to rework our way of thinking about the SEO strategies. And SEO, when it comes to how it's being understood, I understand that from the client perspective, you need to have like that template. We're going to write 10 blogs. We're going to do this and that on a monthly basis. But what we try to do is think of a way that we achieve that, but at the same time, just make sure that as many resources as possible are being included to make that a success story. So that's more important to us, rather than just saying, okay, we delivered 6 blog posts, here you go. That's not going to work if you rely only on numbers. So, and that comes back to the hiring process. It's very important to understand that people need to make the right decision at the right time to make stuff work, because sometimes it's a switch of a button that can make SEO work. Sometimes curiosity, critical mindset. You need to be able to just be okay going back to the basics, just checking maybe something missed, maybe some pages got de-indexed or something created cannibalization that someone in the team has been working on you're not aware of. So you need to be curious about it all the time.
Awesome. I love that.
Awesome.
Right.
I think I cut out for a second there, but apologies for that. For our last question, I wanted to ask, looking into the future as we're nearing the end of 2025 and going into 2026, how are you and your team how are you actively trying to future-proof the team moving forward? Are there any, it doesn't need to necessarily be anything, like it can even be a cultural thing. How are you sort of ensuring, that your team's future-proofed?
I mean, what we want to do in terms of how we approach SEO and how we try to make it future-proof is that the way that we think about SEO is that it's going to be even more important in the future in terms of how search behavior is changing and how new funnels are being emerged in the past. And right now, with all that is happening, we try to think that and kind of build that company culture that what we do, of course, matters for the clients, and we just try to make sure that ROI mindset is being ingrained in everyone working in the company. So that's one of the main things, how we approach SEO. SEO is a strategy, as I said, not SEO is just a box to fill out, and just try to be as open-minded as possible, I would say. And many things are happening right now, many things are working, and we are open to all the changes that come. And I believe when you get to a point where, for example, I've been working a long time, a lot of things have been changing, constantly evolving in SEO. So it's just about being kind of cautious about what you follow and what you don't follow. And for example, I see a lot of things going on with geo and AI. A lot of things work, but a lot of things are just traditional SEO being repackaged. So I wouldn't just follow every direction just because it's popular right now. It's okay to keep calm, in my opinion, just to let the dust settle at this point and just see what the best direction is. But we are okay with that because we see results, we see how it can impact the ROI of the client, and that's what ultimately matters.
Love that. Strong way to end off the webinar there. Thank you so much, Davor, for coming on. That was such an awesome episode. And thank you everyone for tuning in as well and asking your questions in the comments. If anyone wants to follow along with Davor or SmartClick, click his link somewhere around this page as well, and check out their website as well. And if you have any questions as well after this webinar, pop them in the comments below. We'll make sure to get to them as well. Thank you so much, Davor, for coming on. Have a great weekend and we'll chat soon.
Likewise, it was a great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Davor.
Yes.